Okay, happy Friday, everybody. Happy weekend, everybody who are checking in here on Saturday for the update on the tropics. We've got another system that has formed out in the Atlantic this evening. It's gone from just an invest to a tropical storm in just this Friday afternoon. It is Teresa. That'll make it the 19th named storm of this tropical season. And we're getting close to running out of names. We'll talk about that in a minute. Also, Sam is a hurricane. And looking at the satellite imagery this evening, it looks like Sam is already a major and will probably be upgraded to at least a Cat 2, maybe Cat 3 as we head into Friday night and Saturday morning. The conditions out there are that conducive for strengthening. Again, the name count, we're at 19 named storms now with Teresa, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And we've only got two more names on the list, Victor and Wanda. We've got a supplementary list, though, that we'll go to. What have we got? We've got 7 hurricanes. We've got 3 majors, but we're about to have our 4th major. So when we run out of names, which looks likely that we're going to, instead of going to the Greek alphabet, which we will never do again, no more Greek alphabet after we run out of our hurricane name list, we go to the supplemental tropical system names. Adria, Braylon, Caridad, forgive the pronunciation, Deshaun, Emery, Foster, Gemma, Heath, Isla, Jacobus, Kenzie, Lucio, Michaela, Nolan, Orlanda, Pax, Ronan, Sophie, Tashawn, Viviana, and Will are names that from season to season, every now and then we'll get into these and we'll slowly get to know them. These names will stay the same unless one gets retired, and then they'll take it off and add a new one. So where do we stand as far as this season goes? Well, now 19 named storms so far this season, well above the average of 14 already. We've had 7 hurricanes, we've had 3 majors, but that's about to be a 4 as Sam is going to become a major hurricane over the weekend. Here's the big map. There's Teresa. That is a subtropical storm. We'll talk about that in a minute. Sam, Cat 1 hurricane, will quickly become Cat 2 and Cat 3. And it hasn't emerged off the west coast of Africa yet, but there is a tropical wave over the continent that will come off in a couple of days. And over the next 4 to 5 days, it's got a 40 to 50% chance for developing. Okay, Teresa. This is the system that forms on Friday afternoon. Max winds at 45 miles an hour, moving northwest at 14, pressures 1,008 millibars. It's not an overly impressive system. And it is a subtropical storm Teresa. So what does that mean? So tropical systems are surface-based low-pressure cyclones. They're surface-based. They form at the surface, and then they work their way up through the surface, up through the troposphere, as what's called a warm core low. It's warmth. These are heat engines. That's warm air rising through the system, and so it warms up through the troposphere, and this is a warm core, surface-based cyclone. That's a tropical system, a pure tropical system. So it starts at the bottom of the atmosphere, at the surface of the ocean, and works its way upward. Teresa is not that. It's sort of that. A subtropical system is one that begins as a mid-level circulation, and it's usually a cold core low. But it slowly, if it can keep circulating up here at the mid and upper levels, works its way down. It can work its way down to the surface, and that's what Teresa has done. It was a mid-level cold core low. It's worked its way down to the surface. It's developed some tropical characteristics, and therefore it is named a subtropical storm. And quite often with these subtropical storms, they're weaker, and their wind field is much more broad, so the stronger winds are actually found further away from the center than your typical eye wall of a true tropical system, tropical storm, or hurricane. And in this case, you can see the stronger winds are going to be with the scattered showers that are out to the northeast side of subtropical storm Teresa. It's about 600 miles off the Carolina coast. St. George, Bermuda, only about 116 miles to your north, and you're feeling a little bit of a breeze out of that this evening. But it does not look like this is going to become a powerful system. In fact, it doesn't look like it has too much longer to even exist. Upper level winds. So this was your mid-level, upper level low that has worked its way down to the surface, forming subtropical storm Teresa. And it's in basically a very chaotic environment, chaotic mid and upper level wind environment. That and the fact that there is an upper level low that's forming to its northwest is probably going to tear what there is of this apart and have it deteriorate fairly quickly. So here's Bermuda. The system moves north and away from you. It looks like it's going to fizzle out as we head into Sunday. Not going to be a direct impact, if impacts at all, even maybe mild surf up and down the eastern seaboard from that type of a system, not much at all. And if you look at the American and the Euro on this, they just kind of dissipate the system. It becomes very weak. And notice how it's kind of now being absorbed by a system moving in from the northwest. So that's a big mid-level low. Be sitting east of Hudson Bay as we head into Sunday, Monday, which is going to kind of absorb the whole system. Breezy, chilly conditions across Quebec as we head into the weekend and early next week. So we spent a lot of time this year looking at systems that are being sheared apart. A healthy tropical system starts as a surface low and in an unsheared environment can build upward vertically through the troposphere, stacked right on top of itself. And you get yourself a strong developing tropical storm or hurricane in those conditions, an unsheared environment. We've seen a lot of sheared systems this season. So what we're going to show you now with Sam is one of these that's perfectly vertically stacked and in an unsheared environment. And this storm is set for rapid intensification. And here it is this evening, Hurricane Sam. And even from this zoomed out vantage point, you can see the U.S., you can see Africa, you can see there's an eye that has formed. So when you see an eye on satellite, it tells you you've got a perfectly vertically stacked system. It's like looking through a tube of paper towels. You can look right from outer space right down to the surface of the ocean right there. That is a perfectly vertically stacked tropical system. In this case, it's Hurricane Sam. Winds are at 85. That will quickly change. And I think even since we had this 4 o'clock advisory, we've had an eye develop. So when you see that eye developing, that's another indication that the storm is intensifying rapidly. Pressure's down to 986 millibars. It's moving west at 12. Notice moving due west, just about due west at 12 this evening. And there's the eye. And this loop only goes back about 6 hours. So this eye has formed in the past since about 6:37 this evening. Just in the matter of a couple of hours, there it is, opening its eye. That's an indication of a storm that is very rapidly intensifying. Also very symmetrical. It's getting that buzzsaw look to it. That's an intensifying system. Upper level winds, the system, as we talked about the past couple of evenings, just kind of moving along with the upper level flow. There's none of that southwesterly shear that we've seen tear apart so many storms. Peter, Odette, just a couple of examples. And it's moving into an environment that is completely unsheared. That's a beautiful environment, upper level wind-wise, for rapid intensification. And that's what we're going to see with Sam, no doubt about it. The questions remain as to exactly where it's going to go and who's going to be directly impacted or not directly impacted. Oh, and there's plenty of warm water. Not only do we have sea surface temperatures in the mid-80s, that's the surface environment it will move to. That's the skin temperature of the sea surface. But when you get into the greens, the yellows, that's a deep area of very warm water. So this storm will be moving actually relatively slowly. They do tend to upwell cooler water from underneath, but especially as it gets into this position here, going Cat 4 as we head into the weekend, it gets into these yellow colors indicating that water temperature, that warmth extends deep down hundreds of feet below the skin surface where the skin temperature is being measured. And so even if you get some upwelling, which we're going to get with this, we're going to get some upwelling, it'll be upwelling just more warm water, and there'll be plenty of energy, no cutoff of energy for Sam to feed on. Forecast track from the Hurricane Center goes Cat 4, probably Saturday night through Sunday, peaking with winds of 140 miles an hour Sunday afternoon. Still over the open ocean at that point. That's good. As we get closer to the islands in the middle of next week, Wednesday, still Cat 3, winds of 125. At least that's the forecast. So notice this. It's Friday. It's Friday evening. So Saturday evening, Sunday evening, Monday evening, Tuesday evening, Wednesday afternoon and evening. 5 days of travel, and it really doesn't go that far. Right in here over the weekend, it's forecast to slow down quite a bit. Maybe have only a forward speed of 8, 9, 10 miles an hour. So it's not going to be a fast-moving system, at least not over the weekend. It just remains to be seen if we're going to see a direct impact on the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Barbuda, San Juan, or will it stay out over the open ocean and not give you guys a direct hit here, which is what we were rooting for. Statistically, you have to look at it when you see a forecast cone that it's statistically just as likely that the center will pass on the left-hand side of the cone as it will on the right-hand side of the cone. So it's tough to not focus on the center. We want to try to get a best forecast, and that is the best forecast at the moment that the best minds at the Hurricane Center have come up with. But statistically, when they make a forecast like this, it's just as likely it'll be here as it will be here. Oh, and also, over time, statistically, the storm only stays in the cone 66% of the time. The other 33% of the time, the forecast ends up somewhere outside the cone. We haven't perfected this business of forecasting yet. Spaghetti plots are interesting. These are all the tropical models and the arms of the GFS. They want to graze the islands, at least some of them do. The bulk of them stay off the direct coast of the islands of U.S. and British Virgin Islands. That's good. And actually, going out a little bit further in time, there's a growing consensus, at least this evening's runs, that most of them want to take that curve and turn it north. Bermuda, we're keeping an eye on you as well. But a couple of things. So their odds are, just looking at the spaghetti plots this evening, that it would stay off a direct hit from the islands. And of course, if that were the case, we'd have zero direct impacts through the Bahamas and up and down the east coast of the U.S. So that would be very good. That being said, yes, there are a few of these that have a much more southerly track. So it can't be completely discounted that we're out of the woods here in the Caribbean islands, or even into the Bahamas. So everybody kind of still on watch and wait over the weekend and paying close attention to this forecast. GFS, the American and the Euro, two models we lean heavily on. Similar to yesterday's runs, they're very close in track as we head into Monday, Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Thursday, they do begin to split. And it's still that Euro that has a much more southerly track, much closer to the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. The GFS is kind of what we're rooting for to keep it further off the islands. Look at how tightly packed the isobars, those lines of equal pressure, are in both of these scenarios. When you see lines of equal pressure, isobars just stacked like that, like an old 45 record, that's an indication that you have a very intense hurricane, probably a major hurricane, moving through the area like that. Lines of equal pressure like that just indicate a very intense pressure gradient. And in this case, it's a tremendously deep area of low pressure at the center of those rotations. So after that, they move northwest. Again, the European model closer to a Bahama situation, that would send all kinds of wave action toward the Bahamas and Florida. Both of these scenarios, this will send a lot of wave action out toward the Bahamas, Florida, East Coast. But what we'd like to do is keep it off the East Coast and off the islands if at all possible. So is this still the scenario that's most likely? Looking at the upper level winds, absolutely. We go into Wednesday, storm is here, 125 mile an hour Hurricane Sam, but out ahead of it, we've got this nice dip in the jet. And that should work its magic and pull it northward. And that's why you're seeing so many of those arms of the spaghetti plots make a much more sharp turn to the north. Yeah, we still have a few doing that, but a lot more of them are feeling, or at least anticipating, that the storm will begin to feel that trough as we head into the early and middle part of next week, and hopefully yank it to the north before it impacts too many people here on the Caribbean islands. Now, Bermuda is right here. Clearly, Bermuda, you're in play. This is one you need to be watching very carefully. Now, quite often when they get pulled into that upper level wind field, they begin to feel the wind shear from that, and they begin to get pulled apart and weakened a little bit. But this will be moving along with that upper level flow. It won't completely dissipate the system. You may still have hurricane conditions as we head into the end of next week in Bermuda. I think that's looking like a much more likely outcome. So Bermuda, you may have hurricane conditions end of next week. And we go into Thursday, Friday, and a couple of things. We still have this trough. And this would be an upper level reflection of that very intense surface low. This is a great way to wrap this up, in fact. So again, these are the winds at 34,000 feet. We talked about how the subtropical storm is a system that starts at the top of the atmosphere or the mid-levels and works its way down, and eventually you get a swirl at the surface and it picks up energy from the warm surface water and becomes a subtropical storm like we have tonight with Teresa. But this SAM is a powerful surface-based cyclone. So if we've got a powerful surface-based low here, what it does is what those surface-based lows do is they start at the surface and they begin to work their way up through the atmosphere. And so what you're seeing here is the top of the atmosphere, 34,000 feet, a little bit of circulation that's worked its all the way up to the top of the atmosphere, and you really only get that with the really big hurricanes. All right, that is where we stand tonight. It's going to be an interesting weekend for folks in the Caribbean islands and in the Bahamas and on the East Coast watching not only Teresa, but what SAM decides to do. Still a lot of question marks as to the exact track. We're going to do our best to try to push it out into the Atlantic and maybe even push it east of Bermuda, but it's something everybody on the islands and in Bermuda in particular need to be paying very close attention to.